If you told me that in 2024 they would release a Robbie Williams biopic where he would be played by a CGI chimp, I would have said, unlikely, but, okay. If you then told me that I would think this is one of the best movies of the year, I would definitely think that you were talking pish. But here we are, it's the last day of 2024, and yeah, Better Man is one of my favourite movies of the year.
I know what you're thinking. What's with the monkey? I'm Robbie Williams.
On the one hand, it's a fairly straightforward, by-the-numbers, chronological musical biopic, kind of rags to riches tale of a famous singer. But on the other hand, the famous singer is played by a CGI chimp. There's no other CGI chimp characters in the movie. Everyone else is played by a human. No one acknowledges the fact that the lead character is a chimp. They just, act as if it's a human being. And that's one of the film's strengths, but I'll get to that later. Robbie Williams first rose to fame in the UK as part of the boy band Take That. Back in the 90s, they were super famous. As a child of the 80s and 90s, you can't escape that. I remember Take That being a big deal. All of the girls in my school all loved Take That. And then subsequently, they all loved Robbie Williams when he did his solo career. It's hard to if you're not from the UK, it's hard to describe and kind of quantify just how famous Take That and then Robbie Williams were. To give it some context, in the UK at least, Robbie Williams has a good few records when it comes to like music and performing and whatnot. He had a record-breaking deal at the time with the record company. I think it was like 3 albums for £80 million, something like that. He also had a concert ticket sales record in the UK for the most sold for one gig or one day or something like that. I can't remember the specifics. I'll put a link to it in the description if I can find an article about it. But anyway, he held on to that record in the UK for something like 17 years, and it was only broke recently by Taylor Swift. So that maybe gives you some context as to how big and how famous both Take That and then subsequently Robbie Williams was in the UK. So how do we end up getting a biopic about Robbie Williams where he's played by a CGI chimp? Well, there's 2 reasons why I think that they've done this. One, I think that's how Robbie Williams sees himself. He sees himself as a performing monkey. I'm pretty sure they've said that in interviews. But it also helps, in a weird way, humanise the character and humanise the movie. If this was an actor playing the character of Robbie Williams, or even if it was Robbie Williams playing the part himself, which don't know if his ego would allow that, although it probably would. But if you had a human character playing this part, I don't think you would connect as much with them in a weird way. You need the CGI chimp to disassociate from any preconceived notions you have about this person, about the person of Robbie Williams, about the character of Robbie Williams. So having a CGI chimp makes that all the more personable in a weird way. But although it's a CGI chimp, they did use actual Robbie Williams' eyes. So you do have that kind of human connection, eyes being the window to the soul and all that jazz. So why is this such a good movie? First of all, from a purely musical entertainment stand, it works really, really well. The musical numbers are great. Take out the crazy CGI chimp concept, take out the Robbie Williams aspect of it. This is just a good musical. The musical set pieces are top tier. Take That's rise to fame montage through the streets of London. That's a brilliant musical sequence. The songwriting montage in the flat in the apartment with Guy Chambers. It's kind of like one of those like time lapse montage things that works really great as well. The standout one for me though actually is the scene where he literally battles his demons at the big Nebworth concert. I can't remember what song it was. Anyway, that's a great musical set piece as well. Each of them would not be out of place in a high-end Broadway or West End musical. So on a purely musical entertainment film aspect, it works really, really well. It's, toe tapping, thigh slapping, singing along, humming along, brilliant. On that note, the timing of this, for me, watching it, is quite interesting because it's only a couple of days ago that I got a chance to see Joker 2, Joker Folie à Deux, which is also a musical. It's also a movie where the main characters spontaneously break into song and dance to further convey their emotions, further convey the scene, what they're thinking, how they're feeling, their state of mind, in the same way that a musical does. The difference being, I didn't care about the characters in Joker 2. at all. Sorry, I'm just headbutting the microphone here. I didn't care about the characters in Joker 2 really at all. There was no sympathy, no empathy. You couldn't relate to them at all. Whereas the opposite is true of Better Man. You very much do empathise with the character of Robbie Williams. Empathise, sympathise, whatever word you want to choose there. The irony being, you get more emotion from a CGI chimp than you did from Oscar-winning actor Joaquin Phoenix in Joker 2. The film's also very clever as to how, where, when, and why it uses each song from Robbie Williams's back catalogue to enhance, the emotion of each scene, to enhance what's happening. Like, I was very curious where they would use the song Angels, which is probably Robbie's most famous song. It was definitely his biggest breakout hit at the start of his career. And I won't go into spoilers as to where they use it, but I did go into this thinking, I wonder where they'll use that and how they'll use that. And I wasn't disappointed with how and when and why they used that. It was very good and quite emotional. It's interesting to note, though, that none of Take That's original songs are in the movie. None of Gary Barlow's penned tracks are in the movie. Just covers that Take That did, and Robbie's own back catalogue, and a few other, general covers like from Sinatra and stuff like that. Kind of reminded me of the Beatles biopic Backbeat, starring Stephen Dorff, which I think is actually quite a good movie. It tells it's not really a biopic, but it tells the story of the early Beatles and how they rose to fame. But there's no Beatles songs in that movie, and there's no Take That songs in the Robbie Williams biopic. I'm assuming it was random rights issues, but that was quite interesting, and I'd be curious to know what the kind of like the nitty gritty reasons for that are. Performances. As far as I know, it's an actor called John O'Davies who plays Robbie Williams for the bulk of this movie. He does the performance capture, if you will. There's a few behind the scenes videos that I'll put in the description below that show you him in the kind of in the grey suit with the dots and whatnot. So he plays Robbie Williams. It's his performance, but it's just digitally painted over by the fine folks at Wet Hat Digital. So he does great. It's Robbie Williams' actual eyes, but it's John O'Davies' performance as Robbie Williams, and he does really, really well. Steve Pemberton of League of Gentlemen fame plays Robbie Williams' dad in the movie, and even though his character is a little bit cliched, it's a true life person. It's a real person. It's a real character, and as much as it's cliched, he does a good job. You believe him as the kind of, I don't want to say deadbeat dad, but he goes through the paces of the dad that was there and then he wasn't there, but is proud of his son, but tries to muscle in on his fame, etc. Yeah, Steve Pemberton does a good job playing Robbie's dad. The script feels very real, very relatable. The dialogue as well, especially the playground chat with the young kids, that was very very believable. I remember talking like that. I remember kids talking like that. Right up to the interplay between Robbie and the other members of Take That. Like, none of their chat, none of their kind of interactions, none of the dialogue feels forced or fake or out of place. So script wise, very good as well. It's odd, but you genuinely do forget that it's a CGI chimp as the lead character. After 5 or 10 minutes or so, you just forget that and you're just drawn into the story of this character's life. It just happens to be played by a CGI chimp. It really is a testament to the skill of the filmmakers that's the effect that it has. Speaking of CGI, pretty flawless. Genuinely, this is like Planet of the Apes level photorealistic primates. I'm sure I read that it was Wet Hat Digital that did the VFX, did the CGI. So yeah, that track's they're at the top of their game in this movie as a high-end CGI rendition of a chimp. It's not just the CGI that's great. The overall look and feel of the movie is very high-end. There's a kind of crisp quality to the cinematography, especially the nighttime shots in the London city streets. It looks good. Like, London city streets looks good. The performances, the stadiums, everything about it looks very high end. It's crisp, it's clear, kind of like, it's hard to quantify and put into words, but it doesn't feel cheap. It looks high end and feels very high end. I'll be very curious to see how the movie plays outside of the UK, however. And outside of Europe, because as much as Robbie Williams was insanely famous, as much as Robbie Williams was insanely famous in the UK, I don't think he ever really cracked America. So it'll be interesting to see if that has an impact, good or bad, on the film's box office outside of the UK, specifically in America. Like, America doesn't know who Robbie Williams is, so are they going to care that there's a Robbie Williams biopic? And are they just going to be supremely confused that he's played by a CGI chimp? Yeah, I'll be very curious to see how this tracks in the next couple of weeks. It clocks in at 2 hours and 14 minutes, I think. I checked on IMDb. Yeah, 2 hours and 14 minutes. And if I was to pick one flaw, I would say that's it. But I'm really nitpicking here. It's not like massively overlong, but towards the end it did feel a tiny, tiny bit too long. Maybe if they trimmed it by 10 or 15 minutes, I wouldn't have felt that. But again, I'm honestly nitpicking here. That's the only negative thing I could think to say about the movie is it's maybe a tiny, tiny, tiny wee bit too long. So 8 out of 10 for Better Man. Genuinely one of my favourite movies and surprising movies of 2024. And if you want to see the other movies that made my top list of 2024, I'll put that video here. If there's a different video there just now, that's because I've not recorded that one yet. So enjoy random video in the meantime. And I will catch you in the next video.